Hello, reporter room investigators. Come on in, come on in. Boy, do we have a lot of stuff to dig into. I have enough research to do 2 shows. Today, we're going to be talking about the Google warrant and what this exposes about Bryan Kohberger. We're going to be talking about his VPN use, what's really on page 118, how many times Bryan Kohberger really visited the 1122 King Road house. We're going to be talking about Dylan and Bethany. You guys are probably already are aware of the ski mask that Dylan drew, but we haven't talked about it together as a reporter room community. We're going to talk about who the perpetrator of these crimes thought really lived at the 1122 King Road house. Did he know that Dylan and Bethany were living there also, or not? And I'm going to share with you why I think he didn't in just a moment. So please stay with me. And Ann Taylor is complaining that the state got a 6-week head start. Will the judge grant her another delay? My name is Jessica Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects, and share with you how to do the same thing. If you have not subscribed to Reporter Room, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and know that everything I'm sharing with you is my opinion. So come on in, tell me where you are from. And I do want to say a big thank you to our subscribers, our mods, and our channel members. Our channel members are the ones with the green, red, and blue verified check marks, and our moderators are the ones with the wrenches. So we have a big show to unpack for you guys. We're going to start off talking about how many times BK actually visited the 1122 King Road house, and then we're going to get into the Google warrant and something interesting about BK and potential VPN use. And we're also going to be talking about what's really going on page 118. And BK showed up in a location that I don't think a lot of people were expecting him to show up. We're going to talk about that too. So let's go ahead and dig into all of this. So let's start off with how many times he visited the King Road house. Let me take this down and grab this. Okay. So I'm going down to page 9. Okay, can you guys all see that? Let's make sure we're all looking at the same thing. Yes, we are. So come on in, tell me where you're from. I do want to say a huge shout out to NJAZ, our head mod, our other head mod, brother Mike is in here. So I'll be checking in with chat in just a moment, but you guys know I like to get started, especially when we have such a big show. So this motion, then let me just show you the receipts on this. This motion was filed by Ann Taylor, and she inadvertently admits that Bryan Kohberger visited the 1122 King Road house not 11 times and then the 12th time the morning of. No, according to Ann Taylor, he was there 23 times. So let me go ahead and show you this. So this is what she says. She said the state has not disclosed an analysis of where SA Balance will claim the phone was located. There are 7 critical minutes that contain exculpatory evidence. Now remember, this is Ann Taylor, and Bryan Kohberger is innocent until proven guilty. I do have to talk about this case in terms of Bryan Kohberger because he's the one who Ann Taylor is filing the motions for, and he is the one that that is on trial. So she says, quote, page 28 shows a map that includes 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, represented by the CS icon and a yellow circle that represents 100-meter radius around the crime scene. So let me pull this up. And let's go to the King Road house. All right. So can you guys see this? Yeah. Okay. So we're all looking at the same thing. So I just pulled this up on Google Maps. And So 100-meter radius. So what she's talking about is right around in this area. Okay, so if I just were to draw a circle right here, and this is where the house stood. It doesn't stand obviously any longer, but 100. So right around, this is the circle that Ann Taylor is describing in this motion. So let's go back to the motion and grab that and continue on. So we have a lot to unpack. Okay, and then we're going to be talking about, so she says that the balance will explain that he conducted analysis of the cell sites. And let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Let's see. Is that better? Yeah, okay. She says, and so I showed you the 100-meter radius around the crime scene. Balance will explain that he conducted analysis of all the cell sites, that's the cellular phone sites, in that area that provided coverage to the crime scene and identified any cell sites that drive test data showed coverage that includes this 100-meter radius around the crime scene. Now, the reason that we found out about this is Ann Taylor's claiming that the state has not disclosed this analysis. And just remember, just because the prosecution says it's true, doesn't mean it's true. Just because the defense says it's true, doesn't mean it's true. This is just what she is claiming. Because she's claiming they haven't disclosed, everything. And she's also, claiming that she doesn't have time to go through the 12 hours of video footage of the white Hyundai Elantra, and therefore could the judge just exclude that from the trial, which of course I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, the state has not disclosed this analysis. She says pages 29 and 30 represent any time that the 8458 phone utilized. Remember, I told you guys that Bryan Kohberger had a work WSU cell phone as well. That's why she's specifying with the 8458 cell phone. She says that the 8458 cell phone utilized a cell site identified as part of page 28 between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. 23 instances between, 23 instances between July 9th of 2022 to November 7th of 2022. So this isn't 11 instances. This is, and Taylor saying there's 23 instances, separate instances where his cell phone was pinging in the vicinity of the 1122 King Road house. Now, remember, I told you that I don't think that the prosecution's planning to present the cell phones just as on their own. I think they're going to line this up with Kaylee's Bluetooth, because I believe that Kaylee may have solved her own crime just like Paul Murdaugh did in the Alex Murdaugh trial. Paul Murdaugh, if you don't know, captured his dad's voice on a Snapchat like a minute before he was done away with by his own father, who claimed he was not at the dog kennels that night. In this instance, I believe that Kaylee's Bluetooth was offering a handshake to the perpetrator's cell phone every time that perpetrator sat up in that apartment parking lot looking down into Maddie's room. I believe that Kaylee's Bluetooth would have offered that cell phone. Now, whether the perpetrator accepted the offer or didn't accept an offer doesn't matter. The servers on the cell phone and on Kaylee's Bluetooth will both record this handshake. So I believe geofencing is going to be really critical. So 23 incidents, not 11 like we originally heard. So, obviously when we were originally hearing things, the prosecution was still going through the evidence. They're only a few weeks ahead of the defense team. So, and we're going to talk about the roommates Dylan and Bethany, BK's VPN use. We're going to talk about the Google warrant and what's really on page 118 that was in the affidavit, and why BK was at this particular location. Kind of a weird place for him to be, in just a second. So please stay with me. So let's dig into this. So Balance will testify that the 8458 phone used cell sites consistent with being used at the crime scene during these dates and times. Balance will further testify that the hours between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. were identified by the investigative teams as times of interest. So naturally, Ann Taylor wants this excluded. She doesn't want the jury to see this. Remember, if it's good for Bryan Kohberger, Ann Taylor wants this to come in and be presented as evidence. If it's bad for Bryan Kohberger, like he was not at the house 11 times, he was at the house 23 times in the weeks leading up to the crimes. That's, of course, she doesn't want this out. And her reasoning is because the state didn't disclose this analysis sooner. Now, we're still 4 months out from the trial. So, Ann Taylor wants all the evidence excluded. Basically, she wants all of the uh, Amazon searches excluded because everything's too narrow of a search or too wide of a search, not, given to them. She wants all the video of the Hyundai Elantra excluded because she can't be bothered to go through 12 hours of crime scene footage. I don't think that dog's going to hunt. But this is what she's claiming. And remember, the prosecution only had a few weeks of a head start. They probably had 4 to 6 weeks of a head start on Ann Taylor. And she admits this. She admits this in another motion. She admits that the prosecution, she says that she, was basically trying to get another delay, in my opinion. And she's saying that the prosecution had 6 more weeks to go through things than she did, and that they had the benefit of having their crime scene investigators at the crime scene ahead of her. Well, of course, he wasn't arrested till December 30th. So, and they're investigating who did it. So I don't think that dog's going to hunt, but she's a great lawyer. She's doing everything she can. She's trying to get she wants almost 3 months after the disclosure date, and she's complaining about the Amazon warrant. It's too narrow of a search. Another warrant, it's too wide for her. So I just thought that was really interesting that he had been at the house not one time, not 11 times, 23 times. So let's go on to the next thing because we have so much stuff to get into. So we're going to talk about roommates Dylan and Bethany. We're going to talk about BK's VPN and what's really on page 118, and why BK attended this particular event, and what's significance I think it holds in just a second. So please stay with me. I do want to talk about Dylan and Bethany just very, very quickly. Let me grab this. Put this up. Talking about. Okay. So I do want to talk about Dylan and Bethany just very, very briefly. Come on in. Tell me where you're from. So I can see, the roommates are still getting dragged. Dylan did hear noises. She saw a man dressed all in black with a mask who was 6 feet tall or taller, who was athletic but not muscular with bushy eyebrows. Now, I don't think Dylan is going to be a major piece of evidence in this trial. I think what she is going to do is help establish a timeline for the prosecution and also establish that BK does generally fit the bill. She never picked him out of a lineup. She never, never overemphasized what she did or didn't see. Now, I do see Dylan and Bethany still being dragged by people, and I think it's really sad. Had Dylan confronted the suspect that night, she would no longer be here. We would be talking about the Idaho 5. If Bethany had confronted the suspect, we would no longer be here. We'd be talking about the Idaho 6. So I think the fact that, and Ethan and Xana probably are not here because they did come out of their rooms. So I do think that, we should just wait and see. I know people are, upset about the 8-hour time difference when they didn't call 911. I get it. But we don't know what all was going on at that point. We don't know what they were thinking. And remember, I don't think these crimes sounded like what we think they sounded like because Ethan and Xana, they did not call 911 either. And I do think that if Bethany, who is also going to be an eyewitness, I shared with you the Mirror article that Bethany had seen a man at the door. I shared with you the articles that proved that Ann Taylor's private investigator and had been filing motions to compel Bethany to meet with them because Ann Taylor thought she had exculpatory evidence. And I've also shared with you that then once they learned what Bethany saw, and the judge described it as Bethany saw a man putting items in a bag. I believe the bag was a K with an IL, ill kit, an ill kit with a K. I think that Bethany did see someone taking off a monkey suit or a mechanic suit and dropping it into the bag. That's what the judge described her testimony was going to be. Something the judge did deny Ann Taylor both of those motions, and both Dylan and Bethany are going to be testifying. I do think some people are like overemphasizing their importance of the testimony. I do think it's helpful to establish a timeline. I do think it's helpful to, establish a couple of things. I don't think that's going to be the key evidence. I think the key evidence in this case for the prosecution is going to be the DNA that was found on the inside snap of the knife sheath. I think it's going to be the Hyundai Elantra on multiple CCTV cameras. I believe that the one camera that Ann Taylor really wants excluded is going to actually show that it is his car. Remember how many Hyundai Elantras were in that area that did not have a front license plate on it. Moscow, Idaho is a very small town. This was, in the wee hours of the morning. So Ann Taylor's, tried to get it removed by saying that the video wasn't continuous. I told you I thought that was ridiculous. Of course, it's not continuous. The law enforcement didn't have a drone following Bryan Kohberger. They didn't know he was going to commit these crimes. Nobody did. So I don't think that dog is going to hunt, but we'll see what the judge is going to decide on April the 9th. So let's talk about how many people that BK really believed lived at the 1122 King Road home. And then we're going to talk about the Google warrant and BK's VPN and what's really on page 118 and why BK was in a particular location on a particular date. What significance does this have? So let's talk about the King Road house. So I believe, let me pull up a picture of that. Come on in, tell me where you're from. Let me see. Let me show you the house. So, like we are all looking at the same thing, just in case some of you guys aren't familiar with the case. The house has a really strange layout. It's an odd house. Let's see. I think this is a good one. Okay. Let me grab this. Let me take this down. Okay, so we're all looking at the same thing. So that's the house. And you can see that from this vantage point, which is the parking lot, you can see what a good view the perpetrator would have had into the house. And I believe that the perpetrator, and again, Bryan Kohberger is innocent until proven guilty, but I do have to talk about this case in terms of him because he's the only one who's been charged and is on trial for this. But I believe that in looking at this house, I'm wondering if Bryan Kohberger, because I believe the second floor patio door was used primarily by the Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana to go in and out of. Remember, Dylan had recently moved from the first floor. She was sleeping on the first floor with Bethany. If you look at the way this house is with this dividing line, it almost looks like a duplex with one entrance down here on the street and the other entrance. And we know that the DoorDash driver did deliver to this back patio door entrance. And my understanding is that Dylan hadn't moved to the second floor. So this is what I think may have happened. I believe that BK was perched, allegedly, he's innocent until proven guilty, in that apartment parking lot behind the 1122 King Road house. It would have given him a goldfish bowl view into the house and into Maddie's bedroom, and also that door, that sliding door that was used by the perpetrator. And I believe that these young women, Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee, were using the patio doors. And remember now, we're finding out that he was at the house in July of 2022. So he was there 23 times, not just 11 times, according to his own defense attorney, Ann Taylor. So I believe that these young women were using this patio door on the second floor to come in and out at night to avoid disturbing Bethany and Dylan, who were sleeping on the first floor. Now, Dylan did move upstairs to the second floor, but I don't think BK knew she was there. And at some point in the weeks leading up to the crimes, Dylan did move upstairs to the second floor. And at some point, So, but I don't think that BK knew that she was there. I think BK knew that Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana lived on the second and third floor of the house. And I'm wondering if he thought the first floor was its own separate unit because they were using different entrances and kind of like a duplex type of layout. So we know that the DoorDash delivery did drop off Xana's DoorDash that night at the back patio door, not the front door, which again suggests to me that these patio doors were left unlocked and that the girls were using them. And Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana were using these as a main entrance and an exit from that house, especially at night. And BK was mostly there, in my opinion, after hours because he was a teaching assistant at WSU. So I believe he was mostly observing the house. We know from the phone pings between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., 23 phone pings. From that, and I believe he was sitting a lot of the time in that apartment complex parking lot. So he would have seen Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana going in and out of the house. I don't know if he would have seen Dylan and Bethany going in and out. I think they would have used the front doors. So I'm wondering if Dylan and Bethany in part survived because BK didn't know they lived in the same house. This is just my opinion. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. So let's talk about BK's Google warrant and the VPN. And then we're going to talk about what's really on page 118. And then why was BK in this particular location on this particular date? And then will the judge grant another trial delay for Ann Taylor and the defense team in just a moment? So please stay with me. But let's go into the VPN next. Let me grab that. Let me take this down. And let me grab the VPN. Okay. Make sure you guys can see it. Okay. All right. Can you guys see that okay? Yep. All right. Let me make it bigger for you. And make sure I'm not blocking your view. Okay. So it didn't look like it got bigger. A little bit bigger. Okay. So we're going to talk about that next. Let me say hi to chat really quick, and then we're going to dig into Google warrant, and his VPN. What does it show? Thank you so much for modding today. This is our head mod, Njaz. Thank you for modding. This is our other head mod, Brother Mike. Hi, Bridget and Christine. Come on in, guys. Tell me where you're from. Barbara won. For those of you that don't know, Barbara won our giveaway. And Barbara, I PayPal'd you with that today. So you should have that. You'll be able to log on and get that when we're done here. Renee, hello. Come on in. Hi, Kathleen. Steve is here. We're going to have a great chat today. Bridget's here. Adriana. Mace. Hey, good to see you. Nice to see you, Mace. Pat's here. Pat says he still believes that he did it. Kathleen is here. Kelly says she's from Dallas, Georgia. Yay. Georgia's in the house. G of Twins. Yeah, please give this a thumbs up. Let YouTube know we are doing a G-rated show. Thank you so much to Brother Mike for the super sticker. That is so nice of you. Thank you so much for that. I'll be putting that toward a new computer. Welcome, Tammy. Bridget said there's no doubt. I'm curious what you guys think, and I want to hear what you're going to think about this Google warrant, but I'm curious what you guys think about the duplex. If he realized that Dylan and Bethany actually had a connection, because that house is such a weird layout. Hi, Adriana. Hi, Butterfly. Mike is here from Northern California. Poco from UK. Hi, Anna. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Welcome from Tyler, Texas. Thank you, Veronica. For those of you hi, Veronica. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for being there. And thank you for sharing this on Facebook today. I really appreciate that. Dog is here. Good evening. I'm playing Arma, but have the stream in the background. Wishing you a great stream and a great weekend. And Michelle is here. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I did have a loss in my family, which is why I had to move today's live stream. That's really about as much as I want to say about it. Dion is here. Long Island is here. Luis is here. He's definitely involved, but there are some holes in this story. Well, let's see if we can fill in some of those holes for you, Louis. Hey, Bob, good to see you. Yeah, 23 times he was at the house, not 11, not 12, including the morning of. Now, according to his own lawyer, Ann Taylor, he was there 23 times. Hi, Shy. All right, so Lexington, Kentucky's here. Sassy T is here. That girl is here. And Susan, come on in, you guys. I'm glad to see you. Hi, Dion. Our other head mod, Six Sensibilities here. Good morning from New Zealand. I think are you a 12-hour difference? Thank you so much for modding today. And thank you, Holly, for modding today. Michelle's here. Dabs, thank you so much for modding. The state is shady. What's shady about the state? I'm not sure I understand. Susan's here. I don't think they're being shady. I think they're 6 weeks ahead of the prosecution. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think that Bryan Kohberger's attorney made a massive mistake waiving his right to a speedy trial. That would have given them 6 months to prepare. And from what I'm seeing, there's no way the prosecution would have been ready. I think this was a huge tactical mistake on the part of Ann Taylor, in my opinion. I think that she made a mistake not waiving his right to a speedy trial. I think she should have gone forward and made the state get ready. I don't think they would have been ready with all of this evidence on time. As that I like I said, they're only 6 weeks ahead. Hey, Leslie, thank you so much for modding today. All right. Holly Golightly, thank you so much for modding. She says, everyone, thank you for being here. Hope everyone's well. Please hit the thumbs up button. All right. So Ms. Mango is here. Thank you to 6 cents Amelia for New Zealand. $1.99. Thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. And Elborica, thank you so much for the $1.99 super sticker. That is so, so nice of you. Okay. So let me go ahead and let's continue on with all of this. All right. So, because I have so much to get into and I don't want to get behind. I have enough for 2 shows. Honestly, I could do like a 4-hour live stream today. All right. So looking at this, I'm on page 29. Let me just show you what we're looking at. This is a motion that was filed by regarding suppressing the defendant's motion. They want to suppress the AT&T, Google, USB, Apple, and Amazon. So this is going to be, I'm sure, Ann Taylor, because I don't think I don't think that the prosecution is going to want to suppress all this evidence, because this, again, if it helps Ann Taylor, she's going to want it to come in. Okay, but I want to specifically dive into the Google warrants, because we haven't talked about that very much. And I found a couple of things. I think this is really interesting. So here, Detective Mowry search warrant affidavits in support of the Google warrants, where this is according to Ann Taylor. Let me see. And it was signed off by the judge. Okay. So let's go into this, page 29. All right, I've been digging today, y'all. I've been digging. I was digging before, and I had almost a completely different show yesterday. And today I had an extra day today, so I went through the time. Okay, so the search warrant affidavits in support of and this is signed by the judge in this case, support of the Google warrants were far from bare bones. Okay. So this is signed by the judge in this case, the Ada County judge, Judge Hip. And I don't say his full name because the algorithm thinks I'm saying a dictator from the 1938, 1940s that started a world war. So they provided an extensive explanation as to how defendant was connected to he uses the word H, I'm just going to say crimes to keep it G-rated, how each email account, phone number, and IMEI at issue in the warrants was discovered, how they were linked to the defendant, and why the Google data associated there could produce evidence of the H aside the crimes, doing away with Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. In the affidavit for Google Warrant 1, Detective Mowry discussed how the investigation led to the discovery of 2 phone numbers. And I remember I reported out to you that Bryan Kohberger, that I showed you the research that he was using 2 phone numbers. And this was the research that I shared with you that was being done by Shadow Dragon that proved that Bryan Kohberger was following Maddie and Kaylee on Instagram. So this confirms what I shared with you about that second phone number. Okay. This is signed by the judge in this case. In the affidavit for Google Warrant 1, Detective Mowry discussed how the investigation led to the discovery of 2 phone numbers, the IMEI and the Brian Christopher 1994 Gmail account. Defendants Exhibit A to Google Motion page 26 and 28. He then outlined why he's talking about Detective Mowry here. This is the judge writing this. He then outlined why, in his training and experience, he believed the various Google records for each account could, quote, determine any time periods that devices associated with Kohberger were in the vicinity of the King Road residence, and, quote, identify other devices that Kohberger had used or is using that may contain evidence of the described offense, as well as any Google account activity that would show Kohberger's activity as it related to the planning, communications, execution, and disposal of evidence to the named offense. In the affidavit supporting Google Warrant 2, Detective Mowry explained that his review of the information returned in Google Warrant 1 revealed a recovery email of YEWS. So you, sir, NEIGHM, YEWSIRNEIGHM at gmail.com, and showed a login that had occurred on the account at 4:49 a.m. on November 13th of 2022. So this was right after the crimes. Okay. So what I'm going to tell you what I think happened here. Why? But Ann Taylor didn't want the jury to see this. I understand why. She's doing a good job for her client. But this is, the judge, this is the judge writing this, not me. Don't hate the messenger just because you don't agree with the message. I'm going to talk about this case. I'm going to give you, this is a critical thinkers channel. So if you are the type of person who likes to have all of the information so you can make up your own mind, then you are in the right place. So he said, soon after the H aside, the crimes, doing away with Ethan, Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana, occurred through what was likely a VPN server. So BK logged in and was using a VPN to mask his phone. So I'm going to tell you why I think he logged in, why he turned that phone back off. Remember, it was turned off just at the times that the crimes were committed and then turned back on. Okay, so this is the judge. Through what was likely a VPN server, Defendants Exhibit B to Google Motion page 41. He stated his request, he's talking about Detective Mowry here, for the warrant was to establish Bryan Kohberger's previous contacts, locations, correspondence, purchases, and other information that could aid the investigation into the doing away with, I'm watching my words here, he used the H word, of the 4 victims. He again provided a detailed explain as to how information sought in Google Warrant 2 for this additional email address could reveal evidence relevant to the H's, the crimes. Google Warrant 3 sought Gmail accounts linked by, quote, recovery email, cookie Android ID, creation IP or phone number associated with the identifiers that were the subject of the 2 prior emails. In his affidavit, Detective Mowry explained that the Google users can, and here you can see under 16, the sole exception is the email address BK5781 at DeSales.edu, which is the subject of a Google warrant. 3, there's still no explanation in the search affidavit as to how law enforcement identified that account. However, at this point, the state points out nothing was returned on that account, and therefore there would be nothing to suppress if probable cause was not found. So what Ann Taylor was saying was that she did not want the jury to see this. So, hold on. Okay. Make sure we're all looking at the same thing. All right. So I just want to make sure I hadn't clicked out on you guys. Sometimes I get so into this and I almost forget. So, so he said, BK created multiple Gmail accounts that may be accessed via web browsers or other devices and was requesting the warrant in an effort to search for any and all other Gmail accounts possibly associated with Kohberger. Defendant's Exhibit C to Google Motion, page 30. He again provided a detailed explanation. So the judge is talking about Detective Mowry still, explained as to how the information sought in Google Warrant 3 for linked Gmail accounts could reveal relevant evidence. Based on Detective Mowry's extensive search warrant affidavits, it was reasonable for the magistrate to conclude that relative evidence would likely be found within the files associated with the identified accounts. Further, the warrant scope did not exceed their probable cause confines. Indeed, other than arguing in a conclusionary fashion that the warrants lacked probable cause, the defendant has not articulated in what specific ways probable cause was lacking. So, why are these Google warrants important? The court further finds that the 3 Google warrants, even without reference to the respective search warrants, were sufficiently particular. They identified, so they're coming in. The Google warrants are coming in. They clearly identified the place to be searched. They identified the accounts located at Google, the information that was to be seized, and the data from 16 identified Google services. They were subjugated to a significant temporal restriction from January 1st of 2021 to December 30th of 2022. December 30th was the day that Bryan Kohberger was arrested. Judge continues, which could reasonably capture activity leading up to the November 13th of 2022. He uses the H asides words, crimes, doing away with Ethan, Maddie, Zena, and Kaylee through the defendant's arrest. In addition, the search prescribed for data related to the investigation into the crimes of the homicide at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. This was not, as the defendant claims, an exhaustive search of everything available on a Google account. So he's clapping back at Ann Taylor's claim that this was too broad. And the judge continues, it was tailored to the probable cause established by Detective Mowry. While the defendant claims that law enforcement was capable of greater specificity, he does not explain how. And defendant is Bryan Kohberger, and obviously Ann Taylor is making the motions on behalf of Bryan Kohberger. As Detective Mowry explained in his search warrant affidavits, the evidence he was seeking would be in multiple formats and areas. He was not looking for a specific file. He was looking for evidence in connection between the defendant and the homicides, which could be in any of the 16 different Google services identified in the warrant. And I'm going to tell you why this VPN is important in just a second. So hang in here with me. I just want to show you guys the receipts. I don't want anybody to say I've hidden anything. I didn't share everything. Under these circumstances, it is unreasonable to require more narrowing than what was already provided. Then the judge, so this is the judge clapping back at the defense team. He continues, and we're just going to finish this last little paragraph, and then I'm going to tell you why Ann Taylor does not want the jury to see the Google warrant and why this is so important for the prosecution. To the extent that the Google warrants are not sufficiently particular standing alone, the search warrant affidavits cure any deficiencies. So the judge is, flat out, no, I'm not, the law enforcement, the detective Mowry did a good job. Each of the Google warrants referenced in its respective search warrant affidavit, i.e., Lawrence Mowry having given me proof upon oath this day showing probable cause. Additionally, the search team processing the returns had access to the search warrant affidavits. Thus, the affidavits were incorporated into the Google warrants. In these affidavits, Detective Mowry set forth a statement describing in detail the scope and results of the investigation to date. And I'm going to tell you why Ann Taylor didn't want didn't want the jury to see this, and how the accounts and phone numbers were identified in each warrant. And so phone numbers, plural, because I told you guys when I showed you the research from Shadow Dragon, you guys, some people didn't want to accept it from a mainstream media outlet. So I showed you research, and then some people tried to move the bar again. I don't know what to say by saying, well, that wasn't still not, enough. And I think there's going to be a small handful of people that no matter what evidence is shown, just like we had in the Ted Bundy trial, just like we had in the O.J. Simpson trial. I mean, he was found not guilty. I still think there's going to be some people, no matter what's shown to them, they are not going to believe that he did it. And that's fine. I'm not here to convince people one way or another. I'm just going to tell you what the judge says on this. And it's going to be not up to me. It's not going to be up to any of us. It's going to be up to the jury to decide whether he did do this or didn't do this. But please don't get upset with the messenger and say I'm being biased because I'm not bringing you conspiracy theories about tunnels being under the house and that the roommates did it. I mean, I'm just like, I don't have the patience for that. I'm not going to bring you guys nonsense. I am bringing you credibly based information. So is some of it speculative? Yes. And I'm going to tell you why the VPN is important in just a second. But it's based in credible information. I'm not just off on some, crazy tangent. So thus the affidavits were incorporated into the Google warrants. In these affidavits, Detective Mowry set forth a statement describing in detail the scope and results of the investigation to date, how the accounts and his phone numbers identified in each warrant were discovered, and how they were connected to the defendant. So that's Bryan Kohberger. He, Detective Mowry, also included a detailed explanation as to how Google works and why each of the 16 items listed in the warrants could be relevant to the investigation. When considered with the Google warrants, there could be no dispute that particularity is met. Suppression is therefore not warranted. And remember, Ann Taylor did not want the jury to see this. So let's talk about why. Why didn't she want the jury to see this? Okay. So this is this is a speculation warning from a credible sourced information. So the VPN would have masked BK's real IP address, making it really hard for law enforcement to track his online activities and to determine his physical location. Now, if BK was trying to access certain websites, search for information, or communicate in a way that could be incriminating, would a VPN help hide or shield his digital footprint? The answer is, in my opinion, yes. So the timing of this 4:44 login to the VPN would have been right after Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie were done away with. And this, in my opinion, suggests that BK was trying to use a VPN to cover his tracks, delete data, monitor news reports without leaving a direct link for law enforcement to track to his cellular phone. Even more interesting is the timing of the login is just 1 minute after his phone begins pinging off of cell towers again. So remember, the prosecution told us that his phone was not in airplane mode. They told us in their motion that the phone was off. And so and the reason they told us that is they don't think that Cy Ray can provide a proper alibi for Bryan Kohberger. Now, the judge gets to decide this. I don't get to decide this. We don't get to decide this. The judge decides this of whether Cy Ray can provide an alibi or not. But what the prosecution is trying to do is they want Bryan Kohberger to take the stand. But I think it's very significant that Bryan Kohberger's phone was turned on as he's traveling from Pullman, Washington to the Moscow, Idaho 1122 King Road home. And it's very significant that at 4:40, his phone pings again. He's using a VPN to distract. And we know he took an hour-long detoured route from the 1122 King Roadhouse back to Pullman, Washington. And I think thought he was going to be really clever. I'm out driving around. I'm stargazing. I don't think that dog is going to hunt because we've got this little space in time where there's no cell phone pinging of when he's actually at the crime scene. I also think that that phone got turned on. I'm going to tell you what my theory is on that in just a second. So we had 2 hours. Uh, we had that VPN use, and then the login, in my opinion, shows this phone was switched back on deliberately by the driver of the Hyundai Elantra. And we had this weird detour from Pullman from Idaho, Moscow, Idaho, back to Pullman, Washington. So I believe that BK thought he was being really slick and that he would be tricking law enforcement by getting himself on different cameras, not cameras with a direct route back. And I think he had to use his cell phone. I think the reason that cell phone got turned back on, and this is, I think, that is going to be a problem for Ann Taylor, in my opinion. But I think in this, so speculation warning here, I believe he had to turn his cell phone back on because I think those back roads to get from Moscow, Idaho back to Pullman, Washington, that detour wouldn't have been a route that he normally went. And I think either he got lost and had to turn his phone back on, or he couldn't get back without having directions from his phone. And he used the VPN to try to mask his IP address. Unfortunately, it did not work out for him because they found it. The detective Mowry found it. So I think he did get, in my opinion, either was worried about getting lost or more likely got lost from Moscow back to Pullman, trying to do this massive detour. And maybe he was forced to turn his cell phone back on. In my opinion, this is my speculation. And maybe he never planned to turn it back on. Let me know what you think. And we're going to talk about why BK attended a particular lecture, and then we're going to discuss what's really on page 118 that was mentioned in the affidavit, and also will the judge grant another delay for Ann Taylor and the defense team in just a moment. So please stay with me. Let me pull this up for you. Let me take this down. I have so many packages up, and all right, let me take this down. Let me pull this up. Okay, let me grab this. Okay, so let's talk about what was on page 118. And then we're going to talk about this odd place that BK shows up. Can you guys all see this okay? Yeah, okay. So this is page 118. This is Elliot Rogers. For those of you that don't know who Elliot Rogers is, he is an alleged incel. Let me just show you this. Okay, all right, so he did a similar crime to what Bryan Kohberger has. So listen to what's on page 118. And I think there's, can you guys hear me okay? Let me know. Let me scroll down. So I'm like going, can you guys hear me okay? Can you guys hear me okay? Yes or no? I just want to know if you guys can hear me. Yes, thank you, Njaz. Okay, thank God for Njaz. Okay, okay, thank you, Tara. Thanks for modding today, Tara. Okay, great. All right, let's continue on. Sorry, I was told by the provider that my audio went out, and I was like, what? What? Okay. So this is page 118. And it says about how wicked and degenerate women really are. Most of the people on this website, this is Elliot Rogers' manifesto, My Twisted World. Most of the people on that website have extremely stupid opinions. I found very frustrating, but I found a few to be quite insightful. The website PUA Hate is very depressing. It shows how bleak and cruel the world is due to the evilness of women. So I think this is what is on page 18. Oh, it didn't like me adjusting that. I'm trying to adjust it so I can scroll. Let me refresh. Okay. Oh my gosh, it went down. Hold on one second. I'll get it to come back up. Pages. Let's just go this way. There's more than one way to get to this. We're going through 118. Okay. There we go. That worked. All right, so let me scroll back right there. Okay, so so he talks about this PUA hate site is depressing. It shows how bleak and cruel the world is due to the evilness of women. Again, I told you guys I thought that his motive was going to be incel. I still think it is. Now, most people who are voluntarily or involuntarily celibate don't bother anybody. But in this case, I do think that he did have a hatred of women, which is evidenced by the fact that he was grading female students differently from male students, according to students at WSU. That's why he lost his teaching position ultimately after having altercations with his professor. He had altercations with women at his high school and had to finish his high school online. He approached a WSU classmate, tended and befriended her, staged a break-in into her house allegedly, and then installed security cameras, getting her password to help her, and then used her security cameras allegedly to spy on her. The Seven Sirens in Pennsylvania said that they had a card on Bryan Kohberger for the way that he behaved to female servers and also to female customers. So I do think that there was this misogyny element to this crime. So after the spring and spent in absolute despair while other young people lived healthy lives of an pleasure, summer arrived. Summer is even worse in the spring, especially in Santa Barbara. Flocks of hot young girls go to out in their shorts and bikinis, further tantalizing my starved body every time. This guy's just such a piece of trash anyway. I look at them knowing that they gleefully show off their desirable forms, yet they will never give me a chance to be their boyfriend, only increased by my already boiling hatred toward all women. Well, maybe, they didn't want to date Elliot Rodgers because he didn't like women. Women can tell. We can tell when somebody's misogynistic. So anyway, he said he couldn't leave his apartment without seeing at least one of them. The only place I could go where I could be at peace was at the lake park in Joleta. I spent a lot of time there trying to establish a sense of peace and serenity wherever my loneliness in Isla Vista became too unbearable. As I looked at all of the beautiful trees around me and the towering mountains in the background, I wonder how a world so beautiful can be such a dark, cruel place. Indeed, a beautiful environment is the darkest HE double hockey sticks if you have to experience it all alone while other men get to enjoy the company of women. I have nothing left to live for but revenge. Women must be punished for their crimes of rejecting such a magnificent gentleman as myself. And I just, what I'm thinking is that women saw this guy and they saw somebody who was, wackadoodle-doo. They saw someone that didn't like them just because they were female. And I think that Papa Rogers is relevant. I think that, Papa Rogers' account was based on Elliot Rodgers. So he says, all the popular boys must be punished for enjoying heavenly lives and having with all the girls. I had to suffer a lonely virginity. And, I'm wondering if this is why Ethan was done away with. Was he a target or was he just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. It was already June and I'd been living in Santa Barbara for 2 years. 2 whole years I lived in a college town full of young, attractive students who partied and had all the time. I didn't get to experience any of it. No one invited me to any parties. And remember, the 1122 King Road house, I believe that house was selected because it was a party house. I believe that he became infatuated with Maddie Mogan, and that infatuation turned into hatred. Not one girl. These are crimes that cannot go unpunished. The more I thought about all of these injustices that were dealt to me, the more eager I became for revenge. It's all I had left. I didn't want to pass away, but I knew I had to do away with myself after I exacted my revenge to avoid getting captured and imprisoned. And I'm wondering if this is why BK had the Glock with him. That's a speculation. Let me know. And please watch what kind of words you use in the comment section so your comments don't get filtered out and I can see them. So don't use the M word or the S word, but or the GUN word. So for a while, I've been deciding on whether I would exact my retribution at Isla Vista or Santa Barbara City College. In both places, I had suffered greatly at the hands of everyone there. This is such a narcissistic. I've seen attractive young couples walking around in both places. Those were my targets, and I wanted to do away with as many, I'm watching my words here, attractive young couples as I possibly could. After a lot of thinking, I came to the conclusion that the day of retribution will take place in Isla Vista on weekend nights, and the streets of Isla Vista were always flooded with young couples and good-looking popular kids walking to their parties. And what was going on that night at Sigma Chi? There was a party going on. What were Kaylee and Maddie doing? They were out at the corner club. They were having fun. They were, enjoying their lives. There had been a party at the 1122 King Roadhouse the night before. So I believe that page 118 is going to show motive. We'll just finish up this page. What better place is there to exact my retribution on my enemies? Every time I walked around Isla Vista trying to meet girls or fit in with the popular kids, I've only been treated with disdain as I'm an inferior mouse. On the day of retribution, the tables will indeed turn. I mused to myself, I will be a god, and they will all be animals that I can slaughter. And remember, BK was starting to view himself and other people more, it's disturbing that he viewed himself this way, but just as disturbing that he viewed other people as sacks of meat. And we do know that he did this on XR, which I shared with you guys during the last live stream. They are animals. They behave like animals, and I will do away with them like they are, like the animals they are. I'm watching my words here. It came to a point where I had set a day for the day of retribution. I originally considered doing it on Halloween of 2013. So I do believe that the date, the 13th day of November, was significant. That's why when the entire town erupts with raucous partying, there would literally be thousands of people crowded together that I could do away with ease. The goal was to get rid of everyone, I'm watching my words, in Isla Vista and utterly destroy the town, the wretched town. So just, he seems nice. Not. So he said the day of retribution would have to be a normal party weekend. So I set it for the time of November of 2013. Remember, we have an underlined statement on page 118. And I believe this is what we're going to find out at the trial was underlined. The day of retribution would have to be on a normal party weekend. So I set it for sometime during November of 2013. And I believe that the motive behind this was an incel, a lone wolf, was it, an actor. And I believe that BK, allegedly, he's innocent until proven guilty, chose November 13th of 2022 because the 13 and the November were significant to him. And this is why I believe that this was significant. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So I'm going to just briefly touch on the ski mask, just in case you have living, but I have more breaking news that we're going to get into. We're just going to touch on this in case you didn't see it, because I don't want to just assume everybody saw this, but I think most people already have. But I'm just going to briefly touch on it, and then we're going to talk about where BK was. Someplace that, it was just odd for him to be there, and why I believe he was there in just a second. And we're going to talk about, will Ann Taylor get another delay? She's delayed the trial successfully, and now she's saying, well, I think that Dylan and Bethany shouldn't be allowed to testify because they're not remembering things as well because the trial was delayed. Well, who delayed the trial? Not the prosecution. Ann Taylor did on behalf of Bryan Kohberger. Who put the gag order in place? Not the prosecution. Ann Taylor did on behalf of Bryan Kohberger. So let's talk about the ski mask, which is, again, each thing individually can be explained away, but what's starting to happen is we're starting to get a pretty clear picture of what's really going on in this case. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. But here's another brick. We've got the shower curtain that was in the photograph. that was gone, that was missing. And again, each thing individually can be explained away, but this is going to be a circumstantial case. So this is my opinion. I think, and you are welcome to have a different one. Let me know if you have a different opinion in the comment section below. But I believe that this mask that's been linked back to Bryan Kohberger, along with the fact that he purchased the K-bar knife, which was not found with any of the search warrants that was executed on his Pullman, Washington apartment, that was executed at his parents' home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. It wasn't in his car, and it wasn't in his office. The knife was not there. The knife sheath was not there. And the knife sharpener, I don't know. I don't see that on any of the affidavits either. So where did these items go? And why was he looking for another K-bar knife right after? Was he planning to do this again? Did he have more targets picked out? I shared with you that the WSU crime lab, their CSI crime lab, had access to 5 different law enforcement departments' body cam, and that he worked on that floor as a teaching assistant, you guys. But let's listen to about the mask, because again, each thing can be individually explained away, but what the jury's going to look at is, it's really getting harder and harder to explain so many. Wow, the car without a front license plate is, circling the 1122 King Road house. His car didn't have a license plate. His DNA was found on the knife sheath, on a knife that he bought in March of 2022 that nobody can find. He was searching for another one, and now they've linked the ski mask. And I believe that Dickies jumpsuit, we saw the Dickies receipt. I believe that we saw in the affidavit, I believe that's going to link back to a monkey suit or mechanic suit, but we'll see. Let's listen in to Brian Entin and Ashleigh Banfield from NewsNation.
Brian Entin. Okay, Brian, let's start with the balaclava. Again, I couldn't believe it. Today, documents showing that they have the receipts. The state has the receipts for the black balaclava from Dick's Sporting Goods. However, if I'm the defense, I'll say this is Idaho. It is freezing in Idaho, and lots of people wear these balaclavas. Oh, and P.S., he bought it in January.
Just want to make sure, can you guys hear this? Can you hear this, yes or no? Can you hear this? Is it loud enough? Do I need to make it quieter? Just yes or no if you can hear it. Yeah, I just did page 118. You can back up the live stream. Did you guys know you can back up a live stream? But can you hear Ashleigh Banfield and Brian Entin? Penny says yes. Okay, Eileen says yes. Holly tells me yes. Okay, great. And then just says, thank you for being respectful and chat. Yeah, all opinions are welcome. Just share them, respectfully with each other. Okay, let's listen in to Brian Entin and Ashleigh as they talk about this black mask.
In winter in Pennsylvania. I guess that makes sense, but it's really going to have to be add this to the mountain of evidence and see how the jury feels about it.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point that the defense likely will make. There was another just mountain of documents that were released late today that you mentioned that we're still going through. Reading the footnotes, a lot of these new nuggets, these bombshell nuggets are sort of buried in the documents, including this latest about the balaclava, which, by the way, just to be honest, I didn't even know what a balaclava was.
Okay, so the balaclava, which you can see is pictured here. And if you look here, this is evidenced submitted by the prosecution, and this is the mask that Dylan drew. And you can see this is what the balaclava looks, and you can look at what she drew, and it looks very similar, in my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And again, each individual thing can be explained away, but the prosecution is building, and Ann Taylor certainly is going to come in, and she's just trying to have everything excluded. I don't think the judge is going to exclude all of the car footage of the Hyundai Elantra because Ann Taylor says she doesn't have time to go through it. I mean, we're 4 months out from the trial. 12 hours of footage, she can't go through it. I would love to go through that footage for you, Ann Taylor. If you need any help, I would be happy to go through it for you. I know I probably can't, but I'm just not buying that. I think this is just another tactic to keep the jury from seeing that Hyundai Elantra, because I believe that on at least one of those cameras, it's going to clearly identify that it either is Bryan Kohberger behind the wheel or he had his tag on. Now, he could have been wearing the balaclava mask, and you could see with just the eyebrows coming out how Dylan would have thought these were bushy. But let's listen to Bryan Entin and Ashleigh Banfield.
First, I was thinking baklava, like the Greek food, but no, it is a mask. You see it on your screen. That's what it looks like. It's similar to like something that we would wear skiing or that you'd wear on a very, very cold day. And the state got all of the records, got all of the shopping records, has the receipt from Dick's Sporting Goods, and says that Bryan Kohberger bought that on January 10th, 2022, 11 months before the murders. You mentioned it. He was still living in Pennsylvania, and that they plan to bring this in during the trial, Ashleigh.
And again, just having the mask in and of itself can be explained away. So I'm not saying this is a smoking gun, which is, but it's just one more brick in the prosecution's wall of evidence with the DNA underneath Maddie's fingernails that the defense team also doesn't want to come in. They're claiming it's inconclusive, and the prosecution is saying it's not inconclusive, that it does show there's a likelihood ratio that shows it belongs to Bryan Kohberger. So the judge gets to decide on that. But Ann Taylor, if this really was inconclusive or really did exonerate Bryan Kohberger, she would not be filing motions to suppress it. She would want the jury to see this because it would help Bryan Kohberger. Same thing with the Vans shoe print. If the Vans shoe print was not Bryan's shoe size or wasn't a shoe that he owned, she would be trying to keep it out, or she would want it to come in because it would prove that somebody else was there. It couldn't have been Bryan. He wears a different size shoe. She's not saying that. She did try to have it excluded, but not on those grounds. She did not want the jury to see the Vans footprint. So, and then the DNA underneath the snap of the knife sheath, I've heard a couple people say, oh, it was planted. Listen, if they wanted to plant something, why would they frame this guy? Why some unknown teaching assistant? Why Bryan Kohberger? Why? And if you were going to frame him, wouldn't you get your knife sheath and just, put the DNA all over it and really slather it around? Why just, a little bit under the snap of the knife sheath? So I don't think that dog is going to hunt. But let's listen to what Ashleigh Banfield, who's a lawyer, and Bryan Entin, who's a very well-respected journalist, I respect him, think on this.
So, obviously question number one would be, that's fine if you bought the balaclava in Pennsylvania, or if your family bought the balaclava in Pennsylvania, show it. Where is it? If they have a black balaclava in the, things that they seized from his apartment in Washington, that would be one thing, but I never saw one on the manifest. Did you?
No, I do not remember seeing it on the manifest. Granted, a lot of new things continue to come out. It's possible that we just don't have that document because we didn't even know that the balaclava existed or was part of this until today with this latest document dump. I also think this is going to be really interesting, and I'm curious whether this comes up. Since he was living with his family, there's been talk of a shared Amazon account. So how are they going to prove who actually bought the mask?
And that's such a great question. And this is my theory on this. I think they're going to prove, because we've already know that Ann Taylor wanted to have Bryan Kohberger's family have the same rights as victims' families to attend the whole trial. The prosecution said, no, they couldn't attend the whole trial. There are certain members of the family that are being called as witnesses. I believe the prosecution is going to bring them up on the witness stand and ask them, did you purchase this balaclava? Yes or no? Did you purchase the Amazon knife sheath? If so, where is it? Did you purchase the Amazon knife? They're going to go through it with each family member under oath. Now, in the Casey Anthony case, she got off because her mother, Cindy Anthony, and this is my opinion, she was found not guilty by a jury of doing away with her daughter, Kaylee. But, Cindy claimed that she was the one that did the chloroform searches on the family computer. So I don't know what his family's going to testify to, but, in my opinion, the prosecution is going to bring them up one at a time. All right, so let's talk about, I want to talk about the, so I want to talk about something that happened in 2018, where he was and why he was there. And then we're going to talk about the Ann Taylor. Is she going to succeed in getting another delay on this case? So let's do, let me check in with chat. Let me just say hello. Let me grab this next. Okay. Let me just see where we are. And I'm not ending. We have a lot to get into, but I don't want to leave this to the very end. I do want to say thank you to our producers, Jazz, Sasha Angel, George Brown Pepper, Lisa Fazio. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to our channel members. And I have more information that we're going to dig into as to where Brian, we're going to do it right now as soon as this is done. Thank you to all of our channel members. If you would like to be a channel member and have your name appear like this and a check mark next to your name, I just wanted to let you know that you can hit the join button, but subscribing helps too, and subscribing is free. So thank you to all of our channel members for allowing me to cover this case and other smaller niche cases like the Sebastian Rogers case, which I'm going to do a live stream on that right after this. And then I also want to do super thanks, gratitude, and coffee gratitude. So thank you so much. This is for the last few days. Thank you so much. And Jazz for gifting channel memberships. All right, guys. So let me go back to this. Yep, I talked about Buddy. Barbara, I did talk about Buddy, the dog, and that I believe that may be coming in to the trial. It may be coming in. Mike said, I bet he wants a trial for that and to see the pictures. Let me back up a little bit. I'm behind on chat. I apologize. Let me take a couple questions and then we're going to dig into why was Bryan Kohberger here? We're going to dig into the next part. Okay, so yeah, Shelly's right. No knife sharpener found either. Curly Mix said, before Christmas, also some birthday, but can't remember. Under and Over said, hi, everyone. I just got here. Did BK mention? Yeah, that's what I just read through. Yes. So I guess I really am behind on chat. I apologize. Zero says, the Linda Lane video is one. Yeah, there's many videos. So there's not just one video that we're all going to see. There's multiple videos. And let me just put this up in case somebody comes by and they know what we're talking about. There's multiple videos. There's that Ann Taylor wants all of them excluded. And her reasoning for having all of them excluded is because she says that she doesn't have time to go through them. She doesn't have time to go through 12 hours of raw video footage. Let me know what you think the judge will decide on this. I don't think that dog is going to hunt with this judge. I don't think there's going to be a lot of excuses. I mean, we're months away from the trial. The prosecution's only a few weeks ahead of the defense. They're like 6 weeks ahead, according to Ann Taylor. And they're only ahead because it took law enforcement 6 weeks to find Bryan Kohberger, to narrow down the suspects. So there wasn't even 6 weeks in building their case. Mike says that was the day of the warrant, 6 weeks later. Yeah. You're right, Mike. Gia Twin says, yeah, I think a lot of things will come out at trial that show connections and a lot more. Hey, Jody, thanks for modding today. Desi said, where are all your purchases? Brian, where? Hi, Zinab. And Jessica has read page 118. Yeah, you can back up the chat. Did you know you can back up the chat? You can back up the chat if you want to and go back and read where I read it. Zero said he should save his parents the pain of a trial. A lot of people are saying, including lawyers on YouTube, are starting to say that they think he's making a mistake not taking a plea deal. But ultimately, I don't know if the prosecution is offering one. And I think that for them to offer it, they would have to have an okay from the victims' families. I don't think the victims' families are going to be inclined to want to have a plea deal. Let me know what you think. But it also could be that Bryan Kohberger doesn't want to take a plea deal. That's just as likely, in my opinion. Mike says, if he took the shower curtain, it was likely after that picture. Yeah, for those of you that can't see, there is, if on this, when you're looking at the screen, when you look to your right, you can see the shower curtain in the far right corner. So there was a shower curtain and that was removed. Again, in and of itself, is that a smoking gun? No. But combined with the balaclava mask, combined with the knife sheath with his DNA on it, combined with the DNA that's underneath Maddie's fingernails, combined with animal hair strands that we don't even know yet, linking up to either Buddy the dog or Murphy the dog, because although Murphy the dog was in that room and didn't get any evidence on him, it doesn't mean that there wasn't a transfer of some animal hair from Maddie and Kaylee, who I believe fought back, to the perpetrator in this case, and we know that there was potential animal strands that were found in his Pullman, Washington apartment. It could be completely unrelated, but if either one of those animal strands links back to either Buddy the dog, who was the dog that was done away with on October 21st, and we know that people who commit crimes like this often start on animals. That's how they start. I also shared with you the receipts that BK worked as a butcher. We had heard already about the fish fillet, but I showed you receipts that he worked as a butcher during the last live stream. Feel free to check that out when we're done here. Holly said maybe the weapon is in the Snake River or he buried it. Yes, I think that was the reason for his trip down to Clarkston on the day of the crimes. He would have wanted to go to that Naz Perez reservation, which is thousands and thousands of acres, and there's rivers running in there, and I believe that that's things were either buried or disposed of at that reservation. That was the reason for his trip down to that area. And we know law enforcement has him going into and leaving from Albertsons down in Clarkston. And he had a similar store that was owned by the same parent company as Albertsons, called Kroger's in Pullman. So why was he traveling all the way down to Clarkston that day? I believe it was to get rid of the evidence. Hi, Penny. Desi Wesy said, I have thought he bought a Dickies suit from the start. Then lo and behold, they seize a Dickies tag. Right. And you were right. I think you're going to be proven right here on that, Desi. I believe that Dickies receipt that we saw in the affidavit is significant because I think it's going to lead back to that monkey suit, because Dickies does make a mechanic suit. And I showed you guys pictures of that. And Justice, thank you to all of you being respectful in chat. Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Barbara. If you don't know, Barbara won our giveaway, and I am going to be giving away 10 channel memberships, and we're going to be starting that this week. Susan, thank you. The Jewel said, BK built up to these crimes. This wasn't random. They were chosen by him. If not all, at least one was targeted, almost like Jack the Ripper, but all in one house. Yeah, and I think that this house was selected intentionally. I think page 118 is significant. I think the date of November 13th is significant, even though the year was 2022. November 13th, Elliot Rodgers chose November of 2022. And I think that would have been significant. November 13th would have been an homage, in my opinion, to Elliot Rodgers. And this Papa Rodgers account, I believe, is going to link back to Bryan Kohberger. And I think that's why the account was taken down right after this happened. Thank you so much, Rick. Hi, Orange Wedge. Thank you so much for modding today, you guys. Hi, Jen. So we got lots of yeses. Mike says 0. I bet he wants the trial for that and to see the pictures. Avocado toast, so you guys could hear me. Okay. Hi, Leslie. Thank you so much for modding. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Pen Gem says, such an original thinker, Jessica. You're giving us a lot to mull over. I'm glad. I really do try to dig in and give you guys research. I spend hours and hours reading through stuff, going in and then trying to cross-reference information to try to put the pieces together of the puzzle in a way that makes sense and as we gather new things, I go back into old information and try to piece through that to see if we can put the pieces of the puzzle together. And I think we're still going to be putting these puzzle pieces together through the hearing, which I'm planning to air on my channel on April the 9th. So be on the lookout for that. But because that's just coming up. That's like in 2 weeks. And then the trial, which begins July 30th. And I'm going to share with you whether I think that the judge is going to grant an extension to Ann Taylor in just a second. Thank you, Jody. Shelley said, I believe he buried it so he could relive his fantasies. Dion wants to know, what about Buddy the dog in October? Well, I told you guys in the last live stream, I was not able to get any. I wanted to do a FOIA request. That's a Freedom of Information Act request on Buddy the dog. And I could not get it. There was like nothing online for me to find Buddy the dog, the case, to be able to file it. So I called Idaho and I got transferred around to multiple people, and I was not able to get a clear answer as to why I could not file a FOIA request for Buddy the dog. And I was able to get a FOIA request on the Bryan Kohberger trial. Now we know a lot of stuff is sealed, it's under a gag order, but I still turned it in so that when stuff becomes available, I will have it. But Buddy the dog, I don't, I'm wondering if we're that November 21st, which is the day Buddy was done away with. Remember, he was plucked out of his own yard, very close to where the 1122 King Road house is. And what was happening to Bryan Kohberger that day? He was told that he was failing to meet expectations. And I think that would have enraged him. On November 11th, and remember, there was this happened overnight on the 12th into the wee hours of the 13th. So the one day before all these crimes took place, Bryan Kohberger got in more trouble. He had an altercation with his professor. And did that enrage him? And he moved on from Buddy the dog, allegedly, speculation warning on that, to people. And people have said, well, he's vegan. He wouldn't hurt a dog. And I'm like, well, he's vegan and he allegedly did away with Ethan, Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana. So I don't think that that's going to protect the dog, in my opinion. Let me know if you have a different one. Michelle, good to see you. All right, let's keep digging into this because I do have a lot still to get through. Mike says, I think they got him sooner than he was expecting. Hopefully they got some things from the crime scene. Barbara says, yes, I think he is connected to Buddy. I think I think the fact that I can't get this information on Buddy, it should be available because that should have been like done and dusted, makes me wonder if those animal hairs that were in the affidavit that law enforcement got from his Pullman apartment traced back to Buddy the dog. I thought maybe it was going to be Murphy the dog. And if that is the case, that's going to be, again, I don't know how you're going to explain away that. But if it's Buddy the dog, I think it's equally as disturbing. Brother Mike said, Shelley, I also believe he buried the stuff for later. Yeah, he could have buried it or disposed of it. And, and we still don't know about this ID that was found inside a glove, inside a box that's reportedly supposed to be related to somebody in the house, 1122 King Road house, that was in his parents' home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. We still haven't heard about that. Tara says, I heard they have proof he bought the mask. Yep, we just went through that. And I might be behind on chat here. Dab said, so she saw him clearly. Yeah, I think she saw a masked man clearly. She saw this. So she saw his eyebrows. And, I'm looking at those eyebrows that I have up on the screen. If as a female with, this is what I would consider, to me as a female, I would say those are bushy eyebrows. Now, Ann Taylor is trying to say that she doesn't want bushy eyebrows to be let in. And her reasoning is because Dylan had drawings of people with bushy eyebrows on her bedroom wall. Who cares? To me, that just makes Dylan more credible. It makes me, the fact that she's paying attention to people's eyebrows and is meticulously drawing them, to me is not a detriment to her testimony about the eyebrows. To me, it tells me that she pays attention to people's eyes and eyebrows. So yeah. Or just somebody should superimpose that ski mask over a selfie. I saw it going around on social media. I just didn't present it because I don't know. I just didn't do it. Tara said the mask and the weapon is going to hurt with the video and the Bluetooth. I agree. And Dion thinks that Ethan was in the wrong place. And Shelley says maybe they will do that at the trial and get to a natural reaction from Dylan. Tara says they have strong evidence and a strong circumstantial case. All right, well, let's go through the next portion because I don't want to get too far behind. So let me grab this, make sure I'm not blocking it. Let me take this down, add this in. Okay, so why was BK here? All right, so my sourcing on this is Fox 13 out of Seattle. Let me close this. So Bryan Kohberger, this is kind of interesting, I think. And again, in and of itself, it doesn't mean anything, but it does kind of take me back to the Elliot Rodgers. If you have not seen The Handmaid's Tale or you haven't read the book, it's a Margaret Atwood book. You could watch the series on Hulu and you will see how misogynistic the main characters are in this. Now, this is meant to be Margaret Atwood sort of, doing this dystopian tale. called The Handmaid's Tale. But why was Bryan Kohberger pictured in the front row for this lecture with Margaret Atwood? Why was he there? This was back in 2018. She was at the Northampton Community College years before he was accused of doing away with the Idaho students. And I talked about the dystopian tale, Handmaid's Tale. You can see it on Hulu. Definitely worth a watch if you want to understand the mindset of like Elliot Rodgers and incels. You definitely it's definitely worth watching. So while authorities have not divulged a possible motive for these crimes, I'm watching my words here. One woman who met the criminal justice student on a Tinder date 7 years ago turned to social media claiming her interaction with BK was so awkward that she pretended to vomit so he would leave her apartment. So he wasn't like taking the hint and going. She had to go in the bathroom and pretend to throw up. A former friend told Fox News that BK had been ruthlessly bullied by female classmates. I have also heard that he bullied too. Sarah Healy, who went to Pennsylvania high school with BK, said he was shy, kept to himself, a small group of friends, but some of their classmates, especially females, mocked BK and threw things at him, which is sad. Nobody should be bullying anybody. She said, I honestly think that's what led up to this because he didn't get proper help, and it was mainly the females that bullied him. However, he lost weight, he kicked a medication addiction, and found academic success in college. But in high school, he had to finish high school online. He was in this, you can see a picture of him. That is Bryan Kohberger right there. He was in this like ROTC type of program in high school. He had to drop out and finish online because he allegedly had problems with female classmates. So this is John Kelly. He's a criminal profiler and a psychoanalyst, and he has interviewed numerous SKs. And was his take on why Bryan Kohberger was at this Margaret Atwood lecture. He says he didn't come there for the author. He came there for the audience. And in the photo, BK is surrounded by women with very few other male audience members in the room. This was noted by profiler John Kelly. In other words, he's an incel. He doesn't like women. And this is why I think that this page 118 that's listed in the affidavit with something underlined is going to be that last statement. It's going to be the November of 2013, which was significant to Elliot Rodgers. And I believe November 13th was significant to Bryan Kohberger. In other words, this is John Kelly, profiler, saying this. In other words, he's an incel. He doesn't like women. But how come he still has to have some kind of distant relationship? He said, I totally believe this guy was always looking. And that is kind of the look he had. If you think about how he looks, his mouth is very tense. And his eyes are always scanning, almost, looks kind of predatory, in my opinion. And, this may be why women didn't like him. But, always looking. And we've had multiple women that were at the University of Idaho where BK, did not go, that said that he saw him on campus, in the student union, in the cafeteria, drinking water. So he wasn't there for the food. And he made them uncomfortable. He was staring at them. And this, I think, goes back to some of the comments that you guys made when you guys are, we have the smartest subscribers here at Reporter Room. We do have really highly intelligent viewers. And you guys told me that you thought that the reason that, that the autism was not going to hold is because, one, Ann Taylor is refusing to allow an independent person to verify this diagnosis. So the state wanted to have somebody independent, not their person, just somebody independent, verify it, and probably do some brain scans, because people with autism feel empathy. People with psychopathy, sociopathy, do not feel empathy. And on the brain, when they show pictures, they can tell if somebody's autistic for how they react to certain images versus if they're sociopathic. But Ann Taylor would not allow him to be looked at more clearly. She doesn't want the word sociopath or psychopath to be allowed into the trial, I don't think, or the M word. to be allowed into the trial. I don't think that dog is going to hunt either. But I think that I don't know how well his autism diagnosis is going to hold up. I think she'll be allowed to present it, but I think the prosecution is going to refute it. And I think the fact that he was staring, which you guys pointed out to me in the comment section, that people with autism don't like to make eye contact. That's like a known trait of people with autism. The other thing Ann Taylor said was that he had a fine motor skill issue and wouldn't be able to commit this crime because of a fine motor skill issue that he had back when he was 4 years old. He had trouble tying his shoes and with his handwriting. This guy was in a PhD program. He was a runner. He used the Strava fitness app. He ran a really quick mile. There's no evidence that he wasn't able to do things because he had a fine motor skill issue when he was 4 years old. But again, she's a good lawyer. She's going to try to bring everything in. But let's go back to this profiler, John Kelly. He said he's extremely visually oriented kind of guy. This is a guy, this guy's a looker all the way. And by looker, he means he's always looking. And I'm not trying to make fun of him. That is what he looks like to me. Tense mouth, and the eyes are always looking. He's the kind of guy who's not going to chat somebody up and try to get a date or something like that. He's strictly pretty much focused on looking. He's also focused on showing off skills he does have. This is according to the profiler, John Kelly. He's sitting in the front. He's talking about at this Margaret Atwood lecture, but also in class too. He likes to give and ask extravagant answers to the questions. BK once claimed, and this is the same resume that said he used to work at a butcher shop. He once claimed to have won a competitive extemporaneous speaking championship, and John Kelly said he'll answer them in a very upper class way, end quote. So another former classmate from WSU told the Tribune that BK had a reputation for giving eloquent answers. So this lines up with what the profiler, John Kelly, said. One thing he would always do, almost without fail, was to find the most complicated way to explain something. He had to make sure you knew that he knew it. So it sounds like he was like kind of one of those know-it-alls that like to, like, maybe, nitpick. Again, it sounds like he could express himself, which one of the characteristics of autism is they do feel empathy. They do feel compassion. They have trouble expressing it. But when they've done brain studies, they can see that people with autism do feel compassion. They do feel empathy. Whereas people with sociopaths and psychopaths do not feel empathy. So I'm wondering why Ann Taylor won't let an independent person, doesn't have to be a prosecution expert, it could just be somebody independent, verify this autism diagnosis. But I don't think this thing when he's 4 years old, the jury's going to put much weight on that. So the image surfaced on Reddit. It was originally published in the summer of 2018 in the Northampton magazine, along with the interview with Margaret Atwood, who attended the campus that April to deliver a lecture for the National Endowment of Humanities. And a request from the author did not respond to Fox News for that. Police have said that this was a targeted attack, and that he allegedly stalked the off-campus rental home a dozen times. Now we know it was 23 times, according to Ann Taylor, before the crimes, and revisited the crime scene hours after Ethan, Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana were done away with. John Kelly, profiler, continues. He said he saw these girls somewhere. I believe we're going to find out it was at the Mad Greek. If the stalking allegations are true. And again, stalking does not apply in the state of Idaho. For it to be considered stalking, the victims have to feel concerned or threatened in some way. I don't think these victims knew he existed. I think he was surveilling them. And I think that is why we have the Meta warrant, which is the parent company of Instagram. And I showed you guys the research from Shadow Dragon that showed he was following Maddie and Kaylee on Instagram. The Mad Greek owner has denied it, but an employee of the Mad Greek, and the owner was not out there at the cashier's desk 100% of the time. But I don't think she wants her restaurant associated with these crimes. I understand why, but Maddie and Kaylee and Xana, Kaylee and Xana, Maddie and Xana were currently working there, and Kaylee used to work at the Mad Creek. I believe we're going to find out that he was there. But it could also have been that he was in the student union on the campus of the University of Idaho. Again, he went to Washington State University. Why was he there? John Kelly says, I believe he saw these girls somewhere. If the allegations against BK are true, again, these types of guys will be looking, stalking, peeping at them through the hill out in the back there. So for those of you who are going to come in and say there's no stalking, I agree. But I do think he was surveilling them. And again, the reason the prosecution says stalking doesn't apply is because of Idaho's narrow definition of stalking. And then I just wanted to show you the receipts on underlining page 118. So this that I just read to you, and that's why I believe that the November and the number 13 were significant to Bryan Kohberger. So let me check in with chat. Twiggy said BK does not have autism. He's got mommy sister issues. Daddy coddled him as the only son. He hates women because of rejection. He hates rejection in any form. He plays characters multiple ASDP. Overt narcissism. Dion thinks he's a madman. I think women may not have wanted to go out with him because they got, creeper vibes from him. That, may have just been that simple. Yeah, there was a shovel in the trunk, Dion. Again, but he would, again, this could be explained away that, the shovel was, for digging himself out of snow. Unless the shovel has dirt on it, I don't know if the prosecution is going to get anywhere with the shovel. But I do think that trip down to Clarkston to the Naz Perez reservation is significant. Twilight Twiggy said, this guy's not the first. He's just like Ted Bundy, straight up. He's a criminal-minded medication mule, and his sisters know it. And Jess says that was in the PCA. Zero says, sometimes an autistic person is sensitive to your privacy, and looking into your eyes is like an invasion of privacy. Right. And Eileen says the girls did joke about a stalker. But the stalking statute does not apply in this case. So I just want to make that clear. Mary says, trying to claim ASPD because OSU students saw him sipping water. Brother Mike thinks the Idaho stalking law stinks. Yeah, I think it's very narrow. Thank you for modding today, you guys. Thank you for modding today, Pepper. The Jewel said explosive rage components as well. Holly says the girls told a video store employee that they had walked in groups because one of them had a stalker. They told Kaylee's family the same. Welcome, Susan. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, Kaylee's told her dad somebody was following her, but she didn't know who. Starting from the beginning, you can back this up. Well, guys, I'm going to be going over to do a Sebastian Rogers live stream. If you want to follow me over there, I'm going there next. So go ahead and thank you, first of all, for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. Thank you for your sympathy for my family member. I did lose a family member yesterday, and that's why I didn't go live last night. We just needed to be together as a family. And everybody in my family is doing okay. So thank you for your prayers and your kindness about that. So anyway, I just wanted to express my gratitude to all of you who are, left me a message about that yesterday. And I do really appreciate it. And I'm glad I could be here today with you guys. I'm going to have another video coming out either tomorrow or the next day with some more information. Because like I said, I have enough for like another 2 hours of live streaming today. But I did promise I would do this other one. So thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. Please be kind and subscribe. I cannot get to 45,000 subscribers without your help. See you next time. And follow me over to Sebastian Rogers.